Well, thank you so much. We are getting there to the issue. We need global governance. But before we do that, perhaps let us examine what happens at national level, how institutions are being organized dealing with water at a national level. First of all, one question which I would like to ask all of you is this. You remember the last and the first intergovernmental, full-fledged intergovernmental conference on water was held 35 years ago in Mar del Plata. Ever since, we had no full-fledged governmental meeting devoted only to water issues. We had Rio, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development in 1992. We had Joburg, and we're going to have now Rio +20, where water will be one of the elements. Many are saying that because of the importance of water issues, perhaps we ought to have another global intergovernmental forum where matters of global governance would be discussed. After all, the very concept of integrated water resources management was born in Mar del Plata way back in 1977. So some are asking the question, what's the deal here? What is the difference between water governance and integrated water resources management? Being a professor of sarcastic hydrology, I'm not making a comment on that, but perhaps you may wish to do that, Francisco. Go ahead.
Well, I think that the origin of the words and way those words entered in our, let's say, technical jargon or professional jargon is a little bit different. I think that integrated water resources management deals basically with the physical occurrence of the water. Of course, you can integrate as much as you want. You can integrate social, political dimensions, but very commonly when you refer to integrated water resources management, you mean different dimensions of integration, like surface and groundwater, quality and quantity, different uses of water, those kind of problems, transboundary analysis at the scale of the river basin, those kind of things. Now, when it comes to governance, you add the decision-making process as a very participated process with actors, with stakeholders. Stakeholders are always present, but they become key actors. They become extremely visible when you talk about governance. Who is influencing? Who is participating? What kind of interactions? And that's governance. So I think that in my view, or at least with my personal background, I see integrated water resources management as a more technical approach to consider all dimensions that are relevant for water management in terms of its occurrence, its quantity, its quality, all those things. And I see governance as something closer to the political process, political in a broad sense. Who is formulating policies, who is participating in that process. So I think there is some kind of difference there. Of course, you can extend integration as much as you want to cover also this political process, but traditionally it's a little bit different.
That means, if I understand you well, that in your views, the water governance is a larger category than integrated water resource management, and where we went beyond integrated water resources management is exactly to elevate the political aspects and the administrative aspects that were not considered because they are highly political. And in fact, the water governance category in that regard is a response to that cry which many of you have made over the past years, is that we should go out of the box. We should go out of the box because decisions that are impacting how water is being managed and used are often not done by the authorities that are dealing with water, but by others, the national planning offices or the Ministry of Economies. So the larger political context is the one that indeed this thing makes the distinction between water governance and integrated water resources management. Alistair, would you be in agreement with that, or you would say this is nonsense? No, I mean Alistair. Yeah.
Absolutely, I would agree. I think you know, it essentially comes back to that focus. You know, it's political. I don't like this. You know, we often hear a phrase, "Oh, water, it's all political." I mean, fine, but it doesn't really get us anywhere. What I think we need to do is the focus on. We have a focus on actors and institutions. I think that really does. It provides a slight distinction from integrated water resources management, and I would fully agree. You know, it's around the decision making around. You know, I remember writing an article once, even kind of questioning whether water governance is a misnomer. You know, can we really talk about water governance, or is it governance in general which affects water? But regardless of that, I think really. That is where the essence is. It's within those, how those institutions and actors are organized to determine essentially who gets what water when. And as I said before, I think what's really important is not to dismiss, you know, and I guess that gets back to the, you know, it's all political comment, not to dismiss the strong interaction between what laws and policies you have in place and how that influences how the institutions and actors engage around water.
Mm-hmm. Francisco, your agreement with that? Okay. Now let's move on now to the national level water governance. So perhaps one thing we have clarified is that water governance is not just a new fad. This is not just a new word for the same concept, but it goes beyond to what we have earlier done with integrated water resource management. And that's very important to have clear concepts. Now let us deal with the water governance then at different scales. Before we go to global, let us look at and let us examine first the national level, how water governance is being implemented through national institutions. There are different models. In some countries, there is a water ministry. In some countries, it's a part of the Ministry for Food Security or Agriculture. In some places, agriculture. So it does differ. What is the reason for the differences? Is it the local political thing, the big guys who are stronger than the water lobby? What is the role? How do you see the role of water within the governance context? Wim, may I invite you to share with us your own experience?
Yes, Andres, but that is the experience, of course, of the Netherlands, as you know, and that is a specific situation, because we have a delta in the northwest part of Europe with 4 main rivers coming from abroad through our country, going to the sea. And that is the place where it all happens. And 60% of the country is prone for flooding. So we have to do something, because in that part of the Netherlands, we make 2/3 of our gross national income. So the Netherlands always is working on this issue of water management, water governance, integrated in the national policy. Until now, as many countries do, we reacted on disasters. So the last big disaster in 1953, with more than 1,800 casualties, brought us to our famous Delta Works. We worked for 45 years on the Delta Works, and we are now a very safe country. But everybody knows that things are changing. Climate is changing. We measure it. Sea level rise, soil subsides, increase and decrease of the river discharges, more intense rainfall, more and longer storms, subsiding of the soil. Well, we know this. Every delta, every delta is under pressure, also the Netherlands. So for us, it is kind of existential issue in our society. And thus, we organize it on a specific way. We have water boards, as mentioned before, for the regional systems. We have provinces for the spatial planning. Of course, municipalities for their own spatial and water responsibility in the sewage system. We have a national agency for the national network. We have ministries to make their policies on food or agriculture or nature or economics or whatever. And the Netherlands now find a new, actually innovative way of governing this all by implementing a law, a Delta Act, a Delta law. And we want to stay ahead of the next disaster. We know everything changes. We know we are safe, but we have to work very hard to be the safest place to live and work, and also take care of our fresh water supply. And that is what gives me the opportunity to bring this in the discussion. This water resources management, I think you have to connect it with the water security part. It is the same water. It brings you floods, and sometimes it brings you drought. And we in the Netherlands now try to actually find these integrated solutions for this phenomenon. And indeed, they appointed a Delta commissioner to supervise this all through cabinet periods in time, together with all these partners, having two national goals, only two goals: to stay safe also in the future and to guarantee the fresh water supply. That sounds simple. You have to work very hard with all partners to reach these goals. But bringing it in legislation gives the opportunity to reach these goals. Transparent, everybody knows what we are doing. Everybody brings in the fact they have. And every year we report on the Parliament on the next steps we have to take and the measures we have to take for the future. And the focus is the end of the century. So that is the way we try to find our way, an innovative way. We now are, actually for 2 years we're working in this model. Until now it's rather successful, but we have to make decisions yet. But it is a way you need, as my neighbor said, transparency, bringing in the institutions, integrate your participation of people in your society, because you have to run for a long time together in an uncertain future, that everybody knows that you have to act.
All right, that brings me to the item, but you have indicated that, to reconcile the different interests and to have the integration done effectively, probably you would need an effective national act, National Water Act. There are two which lately used to be quoted as exemplary national water laws. One is in Brazil, and the other one is in South Africa, where they have developed, the legislators developed a very comprehensive integrated water law. Could I invite you, Vincenta, to share with us how does it work in practice? What is the role of your institution? Is it a regulatory authority, or it's an authority, an overall authority at federal level? How governance works in your case as a huge federal country?
No caso da Agência Nacional de Águas, nós temos uma característica diferente, que nós não temos uma regulação econômica sobre a água, mas a regulação do acesso à água, né? Então, nós regulamos o acesso a um bem público, diferentemente de agências tradicionais que têm uma regulação ou de mercado, ou uma regulação econômica mais bem definida. Nesse sentido, o papel principal da agência como reguladora é trabalhar no sentido do aprimoramento da outorga, de busca de soluções, previamente de soluções de conflitos potenciais, e também na implementação das políticas que são definidas em nível de governo. Agora, eu queria colocar aqui também no centro da discussão, mais do que apresentar a experiência brasileira, que me parece bastante robusta, muito embora seja jovem, mas eu acredito que a experiência brasileira padece do mesmo problema, pelo menos do que eu pude aprender ontem na abertura, principalmente nas palavras de Mikhail Gorbachev. A água, de uma maneira geral, ela não está no centro das decisões políticas. Então, nós conseguimos montar instituições, nós temos estruturas bem definidas. Agora, enquanto a água, né, ela não tiver enxergada, sendo vista como um elemento importante, fundamental na tomada das decisões, nós vamos sempre enfrentar problemas no sentido do avanço, seja da gestão integrada, seja principalmente da governança em nível nacional. Então, nesse instante, né, a questão principal é a do convencimento político dos tomadores de decisão, no sentido de elevar e dar visibilidade à água. Muito rapidamente um exemplo, no caso dos comitês de bacia hidrográfica no Brasil, que, como eu mencionei, é um espaço fundamental da gestão de recursos hídricos, são poucos os prefeitos que participam desse processo. No caso de governadores de Estado, eu não conheço nenhum governador de Estado que participe dos comitês de bacia hidrográfica. Tampouco ministros, muito poucos secretários de Estado. Então, as decisões e o arranjo que os comitês de bacia muitas vezes promovem têm dificuldade, né, de serem refletidos efetivamente nas políticas públicas a serem adotadas no país. Então, eu coloco na mesa de que o que nós estamos necessitando, no meu ponto de vista, é um local, é um foco mais definido em nível das Nações Unidas, para que nós possamos, a partir daí, buscar fazer com que a água tenha a sua própria identidade dentro das diversas políticas públicas, em particular das políticas ambientais.